Everyone thought Aryna Sabalenka was ready for revenge. After her slip-up at the Australian Open earlier this year, the world number one entered the Roland Garros final looking like a storm that had been brewing for too long. But instead of overthrowing all doubts, Sabalenka fell apart on court in a way no one expected. And things got even worse behind the scenes. Right after the shocking loss to Coco Gauff, her coach, Anton Dubrov, revealed a conversation that should never have been leaked. A confession that not only exposed a psychological rift, but also shattered the image of the steel warrior that Sabalenka had built throughout her career. And if you thought you had seen a Sabalenka out of control before, this conversation will make you think again. Maybe I'm not built for finals. A player who was once world number one, who had won a Grand Slam, said that through tears in a gym that was chillingly silent. No reporter was invited. No camera was on. Just a person facing defeat and betrayed by her closest confidant with a leak that shook the entire tennis world. But hold on, did Anton Dubrov truly betray her? Or was he the first person brave enough to speak the truth about the dark side that the tennis world is trying to hide? What about Coco Gauff on the opposite side? Calm, composed, not a word of reply even when Sabalenka outright said, "She only won because I made mistakes." And just like that, social media exploded. Half criticized Sabalenka as a sore loser. The other half sympathized with the tremendous pressure female athletes endure. Where does the truth lie? And what really happened in that closed room after the defeat? At the 14-minute mark of this video, you will hear Sabalenka's very words, the ones the media never aired. And by then, you will understand why that moment could completely change your career. Don't look away. And if you love tennis in the most honest way, subscribe to Pro Tennis 360 so you don't miss the truths behind the spotlight. The purely scripted battle. No one stepped onto court Philippe Chatrier that day without feeling the dense atmosphere of pressure. This was not just a Grand Slam final. It was a test for Sabalenka. Could she truly escape the shadow of her own impulsiveness? The media had set up a perfect scenario. Coco Gauff, youth composure, versus Aryna Sabalenka, power and determination. But the moment the ball was served, all expectations instantly evaporated with a string of unforced errors from Sabalenka. Wayward serves, aimless forehands. She seemed to be controlled by a terrible version of herself. Anton Dubrov later admitted, "We saw this starting from the semifinals. She was tired, not just physically but mentally." But Sabalenka refused to withdraw. She believed she had to prove something, not just to the world, but to herself. In the stands, the frowns of the coaching team became clearer. Coco Gauff, conversely, step by step, forced Sabalenka into the familiar trap. Anger, impatience, and collapse. No big explosion. No moment of fiery comeback. Sabalenka lost in a gradually spreading silence. The entire stadium seemed to hold its breath, witnessing a star self-destruct. What stunned people was not the defeat, but the way she failed. No fight, no resistance, just giving up. And that very moment opened the curtain to the tragedy behind the scenes, where the first true words began to pour out. But before we get to the shocking leak, do you remember the last time Sabalenka crashed like this? Comment below, because this wasn't the first fall, and certainly won't be the last. The breakdown moment OFF camera. The failure on the court was painful enough, but what happened afterward truly shocked the tennis community. When Anton Dubrov entered the gym after the match, he didn't see an athlete cooling down, but a Sabalenka sitting on the floor, still wearing her wrist tape, her makeup not yet fully wiped away, and her eyes completely empty. She didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't say anything for the first few minutes. But then, like a cracked dam, everything began to burst. "I lost control again. I can't believe I let that version of me come back," she said, her voice so soft that Dubrov had to move closer to hear clearly. That was the Sabalenka version the audience once knew, the one who yelled at the umpire, who smashed a racket, who lost her temper over a single bad call. Dubrov had been with her for years. He had seen the rages, the time she wanted to quit practice just for losing an internal set. But this time was different. This time, she didn't blame anyone except herself. "Coco didn't beat me. "I beat myself," Sabalenka said out loud, repeating it like a curse. And for an elite athlete, admitting that is not easy. It's devastating. So what made Anton Dubrov break the rule? Sharing that private moment with the media? According to him, it was precisely because Sabalenka was no longer trying to hide it. "She's growing up," he said. "For the first time, she didn't need me to say where she went wrong. She already knew." However, not everyone saw it as an act of maturity. On social media, public opinion immediately split. One side called Dubrov a traitor, while the other argued this was the first time the world saw the real Aryna Sabalenka. Not the athlete, not the commercial image, but a woman struggling with herself. And from that moment, a question began to emerge. Can Sabalenka recover, or will this slide become a permanent crack in her competitive psyche? Coco Gauff, the strategy of the few words. While Sabalenka was immersed in crisis, Coco Gauff walked out of the final as if she had just completed a normal practice session. Calm, focused, and showing almost no emotion, the American player not only won her second Grand Slam title, but also redefined the image of a young star with nerves of steel. It all started with the first look she gave Sabalenka during the pre-match handshake. No evasion, no shyness, just a direct gaze, as if to say, "I know how strong you are, but you won't win today." Throughout the match, Gauff didn't try to hit for beauty. She hit to make the opponent implode. Replay every point, and you'll see her exploiting the exact weakness in Sabalenka's psychology, delaying, forcing low returns, extending rallies. Not power, but strategy. Not confrontation, but manipulation. And then, after the victory, when the interview mic was handed to her, she only said gently, "Aryna's a great competitor. She pushes me to be better every time." No subtle digs, no stealing the spotlight. Just pure composure. The difference lies there. While Sabalenka fumbled to maintain her image, Gauff built a brand on silence and discipline. That's why after the match, a slew of brands approached Gauff. While one side was doing damage control, the other was on magazine covers. The American public loves her not just for the win, but for the inimitable composure. They call her Shiro, heroine, an unofficial but meaningful nickname. In the eyes of the American audience, Gauff didn't just win the match. She won the image war. When emotion becomes the betrayer, no one doubts Sabalenka's talent. Superior physicality, aggressive play, and a go big or go home mentality. She is the embodiment of modern, adrenaline-fueled tennis. But at the highest level, talent isn't enough. And emotion is the Achilles heel that Sabalenka has never fully controlled. After the loss, when the press revisited the major matches she had failed, a clear pattern emerged. Under pressure, loss of control. Opponent playing tough, self-smashing the racket. Leading, self-inflicted errors. It seems every psychological variable can trigger a collapse sequence in her mind. The phrase, "maybe I'm not built for finals," wasn't just a sudden emotional outburst. It was the culmination of so many failures she had never fully processed. The terrifying thing is, she herself was starting to believe it. And that is why the leaked conversation is so valuable. It shows a Sabalenka confronting the most vulnerable part of herself. Not to make excuses, but to start over. Dubrov revealed that the morning after, Sabalenka didn't need anyone to remind her. She automatically woke up early, went to the gym carrying a self-help book. Not requested by the coach. Not forced by management. She did it herself. A small thing? Not at all. For someone once called a time bomb an emotional bomb, this was the first time she sought to defuse the trigger. But is that enough to bring her back? Or is it too late? Comment below. Do you think Sabalenka can overcome herself, or is this just the prelude to a bigger collapse? The shocking leak and the wave of reactions. When Anton Dubrov shared what Sabalenka said after the match, he surely knew what would happen. The media would latch onto every word. Social media would take sides. And Sabalenka, already hurt, would be torn apart again. Within 24 hours of the interview, headlines erupted like machine gun fire. Sabalenka breakdown behind closed doors, coach reveals mental collapse, and even a title that caused outrage. Coco Gauff broke her mentally. Tennis Channel replayed every frame of the match like crime scene analysis. They slow-motioned Sabalenka's expressions, the glances, every second of delay before serving. Every sign was dissected to reinforce a single narrative. Sabalenka no longer controlled her competitive psychology. Reactions from experts were also polarized. Some former athletes claimed Dubrov did the unforgivable, breaking the unwritten rule between coach and athlete. Others supported him, arguing that professional sports need more transparency about mental health, especially with female athletes. On Twitter, the hashtag #ProtectSabalenka began to trend. But there were also many users calling her a sore loser diva, apologist, or faulty Serena. The bitter truth is, Sabalenka said nothing. She didn't respond to interviews, didn't post a rebuttal. She was silent. Until a week later, when a simple Instagram post appeared. Every loss teaches you something. Some lessons hurt more than others. Not a tear, not an explanation, but enough to evoke emotion. And that very restrained reaction led many to question, had she truly matured, or was she being managed by a new PR team? The image race, when control is everything. The irony in the whole story is that Sabalenka built her career on control. Controlling the ball, controlling the point, controlling emotions. But that very thing became her biggest pressure, because when everything shattered, she had nothing left to cling to. From her debut, Sabalenka was marketed as the combination of Eastern European power and iron will. Nike chose her to front the Power and Poise campaign. Sports brands launched commercials where she screamed in victory, as if she were the female version of Rafael Nadal. But behind that image was a young woman still learning how to lose. When you define yourself by achievement, every loss is not just a result, it's an identity crisis. That's why the leak from Dubrov was so devastating. It wasn't just behind-the-scenes gossip. It was a blow that destroyed the very brand Sabalenka took years to build. And what the audience debated was not the content, but the timing. Why reveal it when public opinion was attacking her most fiercely? Why after the most painful loss? And why from the very person she once called second family? Dubrov said he wanted the public to see her internal progress. But many saw it more like a media purge, a way to re-narrate the story in a light more favorable to the team and rescue Sabalenka's image before things spun out of control. This opens up a bigger question in modern sports. Are we watching athletes compete, or are we watching a prearranged script? The line between character and human. With Coco Gauff, the line between her public persona and her true self seems to align, at least so far. But with Sabalenka, it's an unending internal battle. Off-court, she appears in evening gowns, advertising perfume, signing sponsorship deals, speaking with confidence. But on court, whenever her composure falters, she almost transforms, reverting to primal instincts of panic, anger, helplessness. Sabalenka once said, "People think I'm angry. I'm not. I'm just disappointed in myself." A seemingly simple statement, yet it reflects so much about the psychological burden athletes like her carry. When you become the representative of a nation, of women in sport, of Eastern European grit, you don't just compete against an opponent. You compete against expectation. And expectation, if not controlled, will crush you from the inside. That is something Coco Gauff, though very young, seems to have grasped earlier. She doesn't let public opinion define her. She lets her actions on the court do that. And because of that, she is free. As for Sabalenka, she is still learning. Learning how to lose without being labeled a failure. Learning how to cry without being seen as weak. Learning how to speak the truth without being called unstable. That line is fragile. But with every match, every time she chooses to return to the court instead of hiding, Sabalenka is proving that true courage lies not in never falling, but in daring to stand up when everyone thinks you can't. Women's sports and the biased emotional framework. One of the unintended consequences of the leak is that it inadvertently rekindled an old debate. Why are women in sports judged more harshly for their emotions than men? When Novak Djokovic smashes his racket, people call it passion. When Kyrgios yells on court, That's personality. But when Sabalenka frowns, scowls, or says something regrettable after a loss, she is immediately labeled unstable, immature, even toxic. That is the biased framework that women's sports, especially tennis, has never escaped. Serena was criticized for her expressions. Osaka was seen as cold just for being reserved. And now it's Sabalenka's turn, being torn apart by the media just because she exposed a moment of weakness. The difference is not in the action, but in how the action is interpreted. And the leak from Anton Dubrov, even if well-intentioned, facilitated that interpretation. That Sabalenka is not okay. That she is a ticking time bomb. But think back. If Dubrov had revealed the same story, but the main character was a male player, would the reaction be different? Perhaps this is the time for sports to change its narrative. It needs more perspectives, more room for truth, instead of just confining itself to the pattern of heroization or condemnation. The truth is, Sabalenka lost. She lost control. She said something she regretted. But that doesn't make her weaker. It makes her more human. And perhaps that seemingly destructive moment is the very thing that makes fans understand her more deeply than any ace on the court. Rebirth from ashes, or repeating the cycle. When Sabalenka returned to practice just days after the loss, Dubrov said, "She hasn't overcome it yet. But this time, she didn't need anyone to pull her up. She stood up herself." A seemingly small image, but one that carries huge significance in a highly controversial context. Sabalenka didn't choose perpetual silence, nor did she speak up to defend herself. She did the simplest but hardest thing: return to the court. There is a courageous silence in the way she came back. No more PR clips, no media responses. Just an athlete, shirt soaked in sweat, legs taped, eyes focused on the net, ready to move forward. The big question is, will this time be different? Or is this just a repeating cycle? Because before this, she had also promised to control her emotions, had also sworn to stop getting angry, but then still lost, still crashed. The difference this time is that she didn't promise anything anymore. She didn't declare, "I've changed." She was just silent. And sometimes that very silence is the true sign of maturity. The issue is not whether Sabalenka will fall again, but if she does, how will she fall? Will she still blame the weather, the court, the opponent? Or will she simply acknowledge it and then get back up? In elite sports, people don't remember every champion, but they always remember those who dared to fail publicly. And with that fateful leak, Sabalenka was stripped bare, defenseless. She cannot go back to being the perfect warrior, but she can become something else, more authentic, more vulnerable, and perhaps precisely because of that, stronger. A new chapter, and the unanswered question. If you have followed Aryna Sabalenka long enough, you know she's not the apologizing type. She fights, she fails, and then she fights again, almost instinctively. But the moment after the final with Coco Gauff, when she said, "Maybe I'm not built for finals," that was no longer instinct. That was a raw truth. The question is not when she will win the next Grand Slam, but who will she become after this loss? Will Sabalenka continue to try to endure within the Iron Woman shell, despite the pressure, despite the media, despite herself? Or will she accept the truth that sometimes emotion is uncontrollable, and the valuable thing is not suppression, but understanding it? Anton Dubrov, although seen as the internal leaker, may have unintentionally done the right thing, opening up another perspective where athletes are allowed to break down, allowed to be imperfect, allowed to be angry, lose control, as long as they choose to keep going. Maybe Sabalenka will lose again. Maybe she will break down again in the public eye. But perhaps the very act of letting others witness that breakdown in its entirety is what makes her unbeatable. Because in the end, the true winner is not the one who never falls, but the one who doesn't need to pretend they never did. What do you think about the truth behind the scenes? Is Anton Dubrov a betrayer or a brave storyteller? And Sabalenka, is she reviving or self-destructing? Comment your thoughts below. We want to hear the genuine perspective of tennis fans, not just from TV highlights. And if you want to continue to follow the hidden aspects, the psychological battles never broadcasted, subscribe to Pro Tennis 360, where tennis is not just a sport, but a story about people.